California of the past.
I am California of the past. I am California of the past.
People are very complicated in California, and so are their life stories. It's one of the reasons I feel so at home here. My name is Nafisa Haji, and this is my complicated California life story. Even though I was born in California, I've spent much of my life outside of it and have had the opportunity to move back many times. Just a few years ago, my husband and I moved from Boston to Chicago before moving back to California, where we'd lived before that. The decision to come back to California, not surprisingly, came in the dead of winter. Our second in Chicago, our fourth away from California. My husband and I were shoveling snow, and as we did, we were talking about how easy snow was to shovel in Chicago. It was so fine and powdery and not sticky, unlike Boston, where the snow was thick and very sticky and slippery and much harder to shovel. I heard myself saying this and having this conversation out loud and realized, oh my God, I'm a California girl. I should not know this much about snow. That was when we decided to come back. One of the things that I missed most about California when I was away was the whole get-together spiel that people share when they first meet. In other parts of the country, like Boston and Chicago, when people answer that question, where are you from? They can usually do it in a sentence, maybe two. It's pretty boring, actually. And usually the answer is within a few miles from where they live now. In California, when people answer that question, where are you from? Usually it takes way more than a sentence to answer. Usually it takes paragraphs. And by the time you've finished sharing your answer or listening to someone else's, you've actually shared your life story with each other. People are very complicated in California, and so are their life stories. It's one of the reasons I feel so at home here. I'm not the only one with a long story, a long answer to that question of where are you from. Sharing that story and hearing other people's stories, it ends up being more than just a sharing. It becomes a claiming of each other's stories. Putting words together to tell a story gives us all a way to claim those experiences and cultures that don't necessarily belong to us, but they belong to other people officially, but they kind of become ours when we read them. And that's a wonderful thing. It takes culture out of the boxes that some people seem to want to keep them in, so that they get taken out, passed around, shared with each other, references and metaphors. And so that kind of changes the way we view life outside of us and inside of us, around us, and broadens the way we look at things, I think, gives us a broader view. There are a lot of places in the world where this kind of sharing takes place, mostly in big cities where you have a diverse population of people living, and in all of California because of its diversity. I think that happens every day. It happens all the time, this exchange of stories and this claiming of each other's identity. As I grew up, I think that's what I loved most about being a reader of fiction and literature, was that opportunity to claim experiences and cultures that weren't really my own, in the way that we normally divide up the world. And that's, I think, why I became a writer. Writing for me is about trying to pin that experience down. The translation of a story, putting a series of words together in the lives of made-up characters and made-up stories. It becomes more than translation. It becomes transmission or transference. Mine becomes ours, and the definition of us expands, leaving no room for anything called them. You put yourself into someone else's shoes, giving rise to empathy. And once empathy has been turned on, it's hard to turn it off, even if it's only through fiction. In Urdu, one of the primary languages spoken in Pakistan, the word for empathy is hamdard, which is a compound word. Hum meaning us and dard meaning pain. So it translates to us pain, what we experience together, all of us, what belongs to everyone. One of the best things about having been published is hearing from readers from Europe, from all over the United States and different countries every day, actually, who now claim those characters that I lived with for so long in my head as their own. It really does bring that sharing feeling back, makes what all the kindergarten teachers teach come to life, because sharing really is cool. It's not a bad thing, it's good. And ultimately, it proves that the threads of truth that run through all cultures belong to all of us. That when we tell each other these stories, keeping the words fluid and flowing, we realize how wide the circle of being human really is, so that the diversity of human cultures becomes something no one owns, because it belongs, all of it, to all of us.